Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning to our audience. So, as a lot of our viewers will say, good badass morning. And so, I'd like to welcome, we have two panelists joining us today. And so, we have Nate Price and we have Lee Jarboe. We have had fun dealing with some technical issues today. And so, you will notice that Cate is not on, and that is because she does not have any internet service in Wisconsin. And so at least in her local region. So she may make an appearance. She may not make an appearance. So we don't know whether that's going to be the case or not. So fingers crossed, maybe she'll join us and I'll see her below and we'll add her. And then we also have been, making sure, back end shuffle and getting everything taken care of. And Lee and Nate have been helping me along, trying to get everything going for today. And so welcome, Nate and Lee. And I'll do some formal introductions here in a minute. But how is your morning going?
Yeah, it's good. Excited about the conversation and, happy Friday. Whoop, whoop.
Yes, it's always a happy Friday. And I have Maya, who has already joined us. So as you guys join us, please be sure to say hello. And so good morning, Maya. Thank you so much for joining us today. And so Maya, I don't know if you noticed, but Maya is a photographer. It's one of the things that she does an amazing job of. But Maya, I actually had a 50th birthday party this last weekend. I think it was last weekend. It's such a blur. So I had a 50th birthday party. I went full out and I had a photographer. I had a band. I sang with the band. So I sang 6 songs with the band at my party. I had 5 outfit changes at the party. And so it was quite the show. I say it was a kick-ass 80s party is really what it was. Oh, I just noticed my camera just changed again. So, well, I'm going to move this. I'm going to leave it.
Sarah's an awesome dancer as well as singer, so she knows how to rock it.
Thank you so much for that. And so then after that, I ended up going to ProjectCon, which is our annual conference. So after my party, I'm now doing more. And so we had a client appreciation party as well. And so I was doing more singing there, going around the room. And so it's interesting, Lee, one of the things that I have been adding into, I've been working on like my intro and things like that for speaking. And one of the things that I'm using is something that you told me once. You were actually the person that inspired this. And so one of the things that I have been saying is that I have been told I'm like an onion. The more you peel back, the more you discover about me. And Lee was that person that ended up telling me that about myself.
And she smells a lot better than an onion.
That's good. That's good. All right, well, I'm going to welcome a couple more people. So Alyssa, thank you. She says, happy Friday. And Maya also just said, so exciting. Oh my gosh, outfits too, killed it. So, all right, well, we will see if Cate joins us. But what I'd like to do is do an official introduction. As you guys are joining, continue to say hello to us. And so today we are excited to introduce our panelists. Nate Price is our first panelist, and he brings over 30 years of experience in design, construction, and facilities management. And along with 25 years of service in the Navy, thank you so much for your service, as both a ship driver and a civil engineer. And he has led cross-functional teams globally, managing billions in projects while gaining insights into diverse leadership styles. And after earning his master's degree in civil engineering in 2007, he shifted his focus to emotional intelligence and people first leadership style. And he's currently a federal design project manager for GPD Group in Cleveland, Ohio, and is working towards his PhD at Case Western Reserve University. And his focus is, shockingly, on leadership and leader culture development among the engineering community. So thank you for joining us, Nate.
Yeah, thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Yes. And then I have Lee Jarboe. So Lee Jarboe is she's a dear friend of mine. I have known her for, are we dating ourselves? 20 plus years. She is a fellow and a certified professional services marketer. She is vice president and senior client solutions director at J.E. Dunn, where she facilitates sales efforts to track more than $2 billion in sales goals. So both of you are doing some big things, billions of dollars here. She is also the author for the children's book series Scout About. And she is also past president for the Atlanta chapter of FSMPS, which is the Society Professional Services Marketing, and she's responsible. And then also she is currently working on her certification in the Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And so we're excited to have both of you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right. Well, what I want to do today is I don't want to be the only person asking questions. So I want our audience, as you are going through this, we're going to be talking about leadership today and what makes a great leader. And I anticipate a really good conversation because I've had a little bit of conversation with both of them about this type of topic. We had a little bit of discussion in the back stage as we were starting. And so I know today is going to be very insightful for the audience. And also I hope that our audience will also add in their perspective. So as we go through these different questions and we talk about this, we definitely want our audience to share their thoughts as well. And so I'm going to start with an easy first question. When you think about a leader, what key traits distinguish a great leader? And so who would like to go first? Nate, do you want to start us off?
I can. Thank you. A great leader connects with the people around them. A great leader is probably also a great follower. The ability to understand that you're connecting with every individual that you're around, as opposed to just leading a team, you're actually leading a collection of people, and you're going to have individual relationships with each of those people. Being able to listen and communicate, being able to establish expectations, and then supporting everyone within the organization, making sure that if you've got 100 people on the team, each of them should get about 1% of your time. And that means that you're going to be hanging out with your lower performers just as often as you're hanging out with your upper performers. And you can lift the whole team that way if you pay attention to everybody as an individual.
I like that.
Yeah, I think definitely the genuine care is one of the, and that's what Nate kind of talked about. I always say you need to know their head and their heart. Yeah. That way you can really, understand obviously what they want to be doing professionally, but what's their personal life, what's their passion, where are they getting their drive from? And it doesn't take a whole lot of time for people to do that. I think I used to have a boss that he would just stop by every couple weeks just to kind of shoot the breeze. And
we say that here.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Shoot the breeze and, find out what was going on in life. And it didn't take a whole lot of time, but it built up a good rapport, right? I think the other quality that I would say is vulnerability. I think that a lot of people feel like leaders have to be perfect and they can't show that they aren't skilled at everything. And the truth of the matter is no one's perfect. And so we need to, give our leaders grace and I'll say our CEO, I did a senior leadership program. And during that program, he actually shared his 360 review with all of us and showed his weaknesses and showed his strengths, and talked a little bit through, where some of his other folks in our C-suite, augment his weaknesses and where he has strengths. And I thought just showing that vulnerability was really a great leadership characteristic.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to welcome a couple more people that have joined. So Kim, thank you so much for joining us. She said, happy Friday. And then Eric Keynes, I know that Lee and I both know him. He's joining us, and he always says good, badass morning. So thank you so much for joining us, Eric. So I love what both of you said. I love the vulnerability aspect of things. I think that is an overlooked trait that makes a great leader, and it's one of the things that I've learned over the years. And one of the things that I've said, I actually just did a podcast with Lindsay Diven, who's my marketing manager, and we were talking about the career that I've had and how it is that I ended up becoming an owner. And one of the things that I did say to her that I learned, and I actually learned this, used to be Tiffany Posey, but that one of the things that I realized about myself is that I had this Facebook personality, which was my personal side. And then I had my LinkedIn professional side, and neither the two should mix. And over time, I realized that I wasn't being my true, authentic self, that I was keeping my two worlds separate. So the business side of things didn't see the fun side of Sarah, and I still probably brought the serious side to my personal side, but I was more fun on my personal side. So I started to show more of that personality. And the other thing that I really like is that you also mentioned going and having one-on-one conversations with people as well. And that is, I think, for me, one of the distinguishing traits of a great leader is a motivator. That one of the things that I found that I'm really good at is also influencing individuals. And if people can get behind something, if they feel they can see the vision, they can understand what it is, and they can feel motivated and also understand how they contribute to that. And you also see them for who they are, that you're not expecting them to be you, that you're expecting them to be them, because they bring the other qualities that you don't bring to the table. And so once you see them and see them for the qualities that they have, and that's one of the things that I love about the team that I have, is that there are people that have traits that I'm like, I suck at that. I'm so glad that you do that. And so I do think that, those are some of the things that really stand out to me in great leaders that I've also had, is people that are able to that were able to motivate me and get me excited about something and make me feel as if I had the ability to make a difference. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, 100%. The motivation, and everybody is motivated differently, and good leaders can kind of find what is unique in each individual. And again, that's why I go back to, if they know their head and heart, then they can tap into what motivates them and what's their why, as Simon Sinek says.
Yeah.
I think the important piece is that why piece, and when you're developing strategy, one of the concepts for how to get started on it is the why, what, how process. All too often in construction, we get stuck in the how. We're going to build this thing. Okay, well, let's jump right into how. No. Let's back up and figure out the why, and then walk the customer, the client, through that process of really deciding where to go. It works the same in leadership. If you can tap into the why for why people do a thing they do. Why is that mason working in a quarry, breaking big rocks into small rocks? If you can find out his why, if you can find out why that carpenter loves framing, and you can help her experience that every day, then you can you can get anything done.
Awesome. We would love our audience also just to provide their thoughts on this topic. So the question was, when you think about a leader, what key traits distinguish a great leader? So we'd love to hear from you guys as well. And I do see we're getting a shout out to Lee. Whoop, Lee, badass. And so Erin, I believe this is your first time joining. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to have an amazing conversation as we continue to talk about what makes a great leader. And I also know that we sometimes get some lurkers, some people that don't feel comfortable saying hello, but if you feel confident, just, give a quick hello, let us know that you're out there. And
I have to say hi to Erin and give her a shout out back. She's another J Dunn. Awesome employee.
Nice.
And friend. Thanks for the support.
That's awesome. All right. So I want to now dive into what are some personal experiences that helped shape your leadership style? Lee, do you want to go first on this one?
Sure. I actually have a hospitality background. So my degree is actually in hotel and restaurant management. And I fell into the AEC industry, I think like many of us. But when I was in that industry, one of the general managers that I worked with, Jack Miller, I did my internship with him, and then that's actually how I got to Atlanta. But he's managing hundreds of people at a resort that I was working at. And he was very purposeful in using every person's name and respecting every role in the resort, whether he treated the housekeeper the same way as the accountant, the same way as the front desk, the same way as his management team. And so I think that really shaped me as realizing, it is all about respect, and it takes all of us to move the ship forward. And so just making sure that you keep and treat everybody the same way, which is basically the golden rule, and we should do that anyway. So that's the basis for my leadership style.
Nice. Nate, how about you?
There's two things I want to point to. One, I was young in the Navy, a real go-getter, head full of steam, if you will. And one of the guys that worked for me, a senior chief in the Navy, but essentially a general superintendent level leader, supporting a project manager. He said, you need to learn how to follow while still being in charge. And in the construction industry, that's massive. You've got 22-year-old, 26-year-old project engineers, project managers, and they're quote unquote leading a general superintendent who's got 40 years in the industry. And so, the likelihood of that project manager really telling that superintendent what to do with any sort of validity is difficult. So the idea of following while you're still in charge, you're still the boss. You're the one who's going to get held accountable. You're the one who's responsible for the P&L, whatever the situation is. But if you can, and we've mentioned this already, if you can get to what people are good at and help them get there and kind of follow their lead in some of those areas while still maintaining your presence, then you're good. The other piece is kind of similar to what Lee talked about. I had just started a new job, been there maybe 10 days. And one of the assistants in one of the offices that didn't work for me, didn't work around me, she saw me and she said, I really appreciate that you walk around and you say hello to everyone you pass. And I hadn't really thought about that because I'm in the military. I'm running around trying to get stuff done. And there's 1,000 people in the building that I'm trying to work with on 1,000 different projects. And the fact that I was making it a point to be kind to people, the fact that I was making it a point to learn their names and say hello, and that was huge to me. And that I think solidified, maybe that reinforced one of my characteristics of kindness. And I think that's important as well.
I love that. I love that both of you really got back to the golden rule of just being a good person. It's funny. I think the personal experiences that I had that helped shape my leadership style, one goes back to my dad. And so my dad was an extremely hard worker and to the detriment of his own health. And I also experienced that from leaders. I remember doing proposals till 2 o'clock in the morning. So, in a lot of ways, my leadership style had to be changed because the things that I observed were not healthy. And so, in some ways, they helped me to reflect on the fact that as I dealt with medical issues that happened because I was overworking myself, I had to shift my mind. I had to have a mind shift of what a leader should actually do in the making sure that they're really taking care of employees. So my demonstration was more the negative aspect of what you shouldn't do, but learning from that and seeing that that isn't healthy. And so it sort of goes into one of my next questions is how do you balance the pursuit of results with the well-being of your team?
I'll let Nate start if he wants. I started last time.
Yeah. The balance piece is the important part, and we kind of talked about this in the pre-show, but the idea that there's going to be times and places for everything. There's going to be times where you're going to work until 2 a.m. on a proposal because that's what has to be done. But also, like you talked about, there's also time and a place to have let other people know what you were struggling with and ask them to help you. The story about balance for me comes down to a situation like that where I didn't have the self-awareness. A boss had to point it out to me. I was still in the office at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and he came back to place a call overseas. And he's like, "What are you still doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm working on this, and this." And he said, "Okay, well, did you go home for dinner?" "No, I've been working, Well, how many people are in the department today?" And it was my job to report that muster. And I said, "Well, there are 452, including you and I." And he said, "And how many people went home at 4:30 that could have helped you with this stuff?" And in real leadership terms, he was talking about the balance piece and the integrating yourself with everyone around you, which is what a leader needs to be doing to make sure that the job gets done. Yeah. So that's balance for me.
Yeah, and I like to use the word harmony. I never feel like the balance is 50-50, but that's what it makes it sound like, and that's never really what it is. I always tell everybody, work is you have to find the harmony. There are going to be those times like Nate talked about where you're going to work late, you're going to stay late, you're going to have a heavy week, your team's going to have a heavy week because you're pushing for, a project close or whatever's happening. And you have to then recognize, hey, let's take a little time for ourselves. Let's step back when we have the time and have a little bit slower day and kind of reset after that. So for me, that's definitely the harmony piece.
All right, we got a surprise.
Yay.
Cate! She finally got internet. So for those who didn't know, Cate is my co-host for the new people that have joined. And so she's been without internet. So welcome, Cate.
Hello, welcome. Nice to meet you guys. Sorry, I am nearly an hour late.
That's okay.
I'm usually a little late, not this late.
You're very fashionably late.
Yes.
That is very fashionably.
Yes. That is my
All right, I'm going to pull up a couple
to see you.
Comments that came. So Maya said, "I started my career in hospitality too. Such a great way to shape how you serve people." And then Aaron added, "A great leader is understanding personally and professionally," like Lee said as well. And so I don't know, you missed a little bit, Cate, but what we were talking about is how do you balance the pursuit of results with the well-being of your team? And so we hear a lot about work-life balance. And I'm like, yeah, there's really not so, there's not a thing as work-life balance, because it does make it sound like, as Lee said, it's 50-50, like I'm 50% here and I'm 50% here. And
Right.
that isn't always going to be the case. And I think that it's also to understand what motivates you as well. Like, what are your desires in life? Sometimes I actually enjoy working, and sometimes I'll work more than I'm actually at home. And other times I also need to balance my health, and I need to balance my life at home. And so that takes the priority. So I think that it's recognizing both. It's when one or the other is at a detriment to the other. So like, I'm always having issues at home, and therefore it's a detriment to my work, because I'm not able to help my coworkers. I'm not able to do the things that I need to do.
Yeah.
Or I'm constantly at work and it's impacting my relationships. It's impacting my health. It's the recognition for me. Real work-life balance is recognizing those two. And when something is at detriment, or when something, as Lee said, harmony, it's the, am I feeling like I'm balanced in those two, and something really, for me, it's more the detriment of something. And so, Cate, what do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely all about that balance. I think, and that's what it is, right? It's not like there. I think so. Did you guys already kind of cover or talk about how like your personal life has to be kind of commingled in some ways, right? Did you guys talk about that? So, and especially this day and age, with more of us working from home than ever, we're in our home life, right? Our work is now right here. So, and then there's folks of us that are really lucky that, really enjoy what they do. Like, I'm one of those people where like my work is also kind of my hobby, like, because I like it so much. So it's about truly making sure that you're bringing your best self to both worlds at all times, right? And if one of them is stressing you out, you have to address it, because it's inevitably going to affect the other.
Yeah, and I think as a leader, and I'm going to bring up Joel's comment, because this is really, I think, a key point here, is that a good leader knows how to delegate tasks and has the ability to relinquish control to others, even if the person being tasked may initially stumble with the execution. A good leader empowers their staff to make some mistakes in the interest of their development. I wholeheartedly believe that. One of the things that I have had employees tell me is that when they are starting to feel overwhelmed, for whatever reason, I reach out to them, and I already know, because I'm like sensing it. I think also a good leader is someone who is intuitive. And that's one of the traits that I think that I have, is I'm able to feel people, and also like understand that they have, and I think this goes along with the empathy aspect of things. And so like Amanda Roussel, for example, I'll reach out to her and she was like, oh, I was just thinking about reaching out to you about this. I'm so glad you're already like taking care of it. And so it's those types of things, but it's also building a team that when someone is overwhelmed, you go, hey, who else can help with this? Or, hey, like, why are you here? Like, we have those types of conversations, like, you're sick. Like, why are you here? Go get better. Hey, everyone, can we figure out how we can, take care of the workload? It's the delegation of things. And also the other thing I really like is the mistakes. This is one of the things I really had to learn early on in my career, is delegation, and also hands off, and allowing people to make mistakes, and also understanding, keep the end in mind. Like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
If they accomplish the end in mind, let them, if they need to go to A to B to C to D, even though you went A to B, and you're done, let them go the extra steps, because they're figuring things out, and they're going to make mistakes along the way. And then they're also going to learn what not to do the next time. Instead of me telling them, they will learn it, and it'll sink in more than me telling them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nate, what do you think?
I think something around that, and with regard to delegating, and I can't remember when I started doing this, but I never say end of day when I want something. I never say I need it by Friday. I say, hey, I need it by 11 o'clock on Friday so that I can review it before I go home Friday. And then what that does is it puts that understanding beyond whoever I'm asking for a thing in what I'm about to do next. And so then for people who are new to the organization or who you're trying to feel out to see if they're up to stuff, you just give yourself more time.
Mm-hmm.
You end up giving yourself, instead of saying, hey, I need this by Friday at 11, you say, hey, I need this by Thursday at 11 so that I can provide comments and feedback and you can give me the final on Friday. And what this, again, does is it kind of sets that expectation of timeliness. But I don't go back and check with people. If I told them I wanted it by Thursday at 11, around 11:30 or 12:30, I start sending emails. I don't send them an email on Wednesday afternoon saying, hey, are you still going to make it by 11 on Friday?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
I asked you to have it by 11 on Friday, and I'm going to go focus on other things while you're doing that.
I'm going to pull up Maya's comment real quick, and then Lee, I'll go to you. Laugh out loud. As a photographer, I do not have balance from about September through December, but I love what I do and try very hard to make sure my family still feels seen and to book in those months with a quick concentrated break. And so
That's smart, Maya.
Yeah. Lee, what did you have?
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that I think is a quality in leadership, but also just, for everyone is prioritization. I don't think a lot gets talked about when it comes to prioritization and how you decide what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, all of those things. I read a great book called Organize Tomorrow Today. And it's written by two guys. One is an elite executive coach and another one is an elite athlete coach. And what they basically realized was they were kind of telling their clients the same thing. And so one of those was how to prioritize what you're going to get done. Because if you're trying to make an impact as a leader, you can't do everything and you can't be everything to everyone. And so really having that ability to prioritize and get the right things done, I think is key. And that's part of that harmony.
Yeah, I know we have several questions we're going to get through, so I'm going to jump to the next one. And so I really like this one, and I'm curious what you guys think. What's a misconception about leadership that you would like to debunk?
I mean, I kind of touched on it earlier, but I said, when I talked about vulnerability, but I think a lot of people think that leaders are perfect. And it is really that is not the case. They are human, just like we are human. And so really recognizing that, I think is key. I had a boss that I'll just say when I had my second child, we were talking about, I think he was trying to be understanding, like, oh, well, what are you nervous about coming back? Are you coming back? All these things. And, I said, well, I'm just, it's going to be a lot. It's 2 kids now. And, he looked and he was like, well, we've all had kids and had to figure it out. And I was like, okay, dude, with a stay-at-home wife who does everything. And I'm like a working mom. And, I kind of had this like, and I'll say, I think he, thought about it and came back and was kind of like, I think my reaction wasn't quite right. And, really apologized for, how that conversation went. And so I really appreciated the fact that he kind of stepped back, thought about it, recognized it. And again, nobody's perfect. And so keep that in mind with your leaders when they maybe have an initial reaction that surprises you. But if they're a really good leader, they'll come back and talk it out.
Yeah. Nate, what do you think? What's a misconception about leadership?
one of the older ones was referred to as the great man theory, and the idea was that leaders were just born, and I think that that's trash. The idea, though, that kind of brings that forward is that it takes work, and so if that work is done, then you can become a phenomenal leader. But it's a practice, it's an identity, it's a skill, and just like dribbling a basketball or being able to draw, you have to hone that skill if you're going to continue to get better and better at it. Along those same lines is taking someone who is, for construction, they're a phenomenal project engineer. They handle RFIs like nobody's ever handled requests for information before. They're the best at doing daily reports that I've ever seen. And then 4 years later, they say, okay, well, we're going to make you a manager now. And wait, this civil engineer had 4 years of engineering training. They had a semester of management training, and then 4 years of managing engineering for themselves. I'm doing what I'm doing. And now all of a sudden you're going to say, okay, well, now we want you to handle the lives of these humans. We want you to be in charge of what they think about this company. We want you to be in charge of how they deliver products. Ready, go. And I think that we need to shift that conception to make sure that it's something that's taught in school, and that's beginning to happen among engineers. But it's also, I say engineers, but it could be surgeons, it could be police officers, it could be scientists. Pick a thing where we take individuals and we say, oh, they're super good, they're super great at what they do, so they must be a phenomenal leader. They must be a phenomenal manager. And that's not always the case. And maybe we in society and in corporations need to try and figure out what's the technician route to advancement, not the leader route to advancement. What are the ways that someone could actually just continue to get promoted and grow as a technician, working on the thing that they work on, that they love doing? And then someone who moves out of that technical role and into a leadership role and moves up. And then what if they move back and forth? How much better could we do things if we thought that way? So.
Yeah, I will say that when I first became a leader, I sucked. I think back on like the things that I did, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like no wonder I got, sometimes the interactions and the things that happened. And so for me, some of the key things that I found that I think are misconceptions is that you can't be vulnerable, that if you're vulnerable, it's weak. So for me, that is one of the biggest misconceptions, is that vulnerability equals weakness, when in actuality, vulnerability takes a lot of fucking courage. Being your authentic self, bringing who you really are, is really what I see. Hey, kitty. No, you're good. I love it. That to me are some of the things that you can't be your authentic self. You can't be vulnerable. Those are, to me, are misconceptions, that you can't have those, when in actuality, those have made me become a better leader. Cate, what do you think?
Yeah. So my gut, led me right down the path, a very similar path that Nate was on, and you, Sarah, that as leaders, there's this misconception that, we shouldn't model humanity. We shouldn't own up to our mistakes. We shouldn't say, shit, I let that slip through the cracks, I'm so sorry, and that's just dead wrong. I also think that leaders shouldn't be selected. You should want to be a leader. I also think that everyone is a leader. Like everyone, every person is a leader. They're leading someone. Like my 8-year-old leads the 6-year-old around. That's how it works. And so we all have a little taste of leadership. And if you want more, if you want to get into management or get into, into that type of role, ask for it, and then do exactly what Nate is talking about. Work on the skills, like there are people that are born with, characteristics that make those skills easier to obtain than others, right? But just like anything, like I was not born with the ability to play basketball very well. I still kicked some ass at basketball when needed. Not really. It's a joke in our household. I always say that I am the best at every single sport. But it, but I was born with like natural leadership skills. I know that, like, that's just who I was. But that doesn't mean that I can't, if I want to try to gain a new skill, that I can't get it. And leadership is just like that.
Yeah. I want to share this story that I thought was interesting. That was of my daughter. So I had, and to me, I do think that there are individuals that have characteristics that make it easier for them to be a leader. That for some people, depending on their experiences, they might have to spend more time. It's not that I think everyone can be leaders, and I don't think you need a title. I think that's also one of the misconceptions, is that you have to have the title to be a leader. You don't. Like, anybody can be a leader, as Cate was saying. But an example of this is that in my daughter's preschool, the teacher went through, she wanted everybody, she gave them all a letter, and it was A through Z, but they didn't make it all the way, but they had to put themselves in order. And she thought that each of them would be like, what are you? What are you? Like all of them talking to each other. No, my daughter went out there and goes, okay, who's A? And she put them there, and then she goes, who's B? And she started doing that. And the teacher was like, wait a minute, this isn't how I thought it was going to happen. So as the leader, she thought it was going to happen a particular way, and it happened a completely different way. Right. Someone stepped up who isn't the teacher, isn't leading, chose to be the leader in situations. And so I want to tell that story just because the leader thought something was going to happen a particular way, and it didn't. And someone else who isn't designated the leader stepped up and took leadership. That to me is leadership, is people stepping up and saying, hey, let's get things organized. I see something that needs to be done. We don't need permission to do that. Any of us can be leaders in what it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
Can I bring up something that I think is kind of the pot calling the kettle black here, which is the leader is not necessarily the loudest person in the room, right? And a lot of times people think that, the louder people are the ones that are set out to be the leaders, right? And that's not true. Actually, my leadership style is actually pretty laid back and way less loud. My leadership style is more empathetic and relationship based. I think the people that report to me would say that, like, way more hands off than one might think, just knowing my personality. But, leaders come in all shapes and sizes, just like humans do. And we don't have to bow down to the loud Cate in the room, or the, whomever it is, right? We can all shine in different ways.
It's usually the loudly. I'm a loud talker. My husband's always looking for the volume control. But
I love loudly.
Yeah, keep that might be one of my leadership skills. I'm not sure.
All right, I got a couple of comments coming in. And so Jennifer Lacey's joining us. She said, good morning, my peeps. And she says, Nate is bringing the firepower. So you both brought people that are basically cheering you on today. That's awesome. And so Maya also said, a consideration is also that some people, like myself, often put trust in another leader to determine where and how they will be a good fit. So when someone does put you in that leadership post, you may trust their judgment because you don't trust or know yourself to detriment whether or not it is indeed a good idea. I agree with that as well. Sometimes I think other people can see things that we don't necessarily see, but sometimes we might see things different. And it's also having the courage to say, like, I actually don't see myself in that. And here's why. So thoughts on that comment?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the best kind of qualities of a leader is to know thyself.
Yeah.
Because that helps you. Again, we talked earlier about just surrounding yourself with people who have different skill sets than you do. And so I do think when leaders know their teams, like we talked, their head and their heart, then they can give people stretch opportunities that they might not see for themselves. And so I think you bring up a good point, as in you always want to be supporting your team, but having that dialogue, right? And if they don't have confidence in themselves or they don't see it, be able to tell them why you see it, right? Because sometimes it's just providing that stretch opportunity and then that support that'll get somebody to the next place.
Yeah.
You use the word courage, Sarah, and I think that's a huge component, right? Because leaders are often in the position to kind of forge into sometimes unknown territory, right? And the biggest asset you can have as a leader, and as a human in general, right, is to be able to face fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to face it head on, right? So you have the courage to know yourself and to be real with yourself, but you also have to have, the ability to move toward the unknown and face that fear of, not only am I taking myself into unknown territory, there's some people behind me that I'm responsible for. They have to come too, and I don't really know what's going on, up ahead, but I'm going to use the skills I have to get there, right?
Yeah, you're leading me into a next question that I really, really love is, what are overlooked challenges leaderships face, and how have you handled them? So you talked about fear and the unknown. I can tell you that many times in my career, how I've gotten to where I'm at is because no one had charted the path and I had to figure it out. Like when I started with this company, no one had done CRM consultation. I had to create it. I had to invent it. I had to, I'd had experiences with someone from Deltec whenever I was at the previous company, but I had no mentors. Like no one had done it. So some of it is just having the courage to go, okay, I'll figure it out. And just trusting in yourself, I think again is, the overlooked challenges of leaders is that we have to figure shit out. When things are new, people turn to you, but people don't always recognize the fact that you're the one having to forge the new path forward and figure things out. And you're going to make mistakes along the way. So some of the overlooked challenges is that forging the path and knowing that we still will trust in ourselves and trust in our team that we'll figure it out. Lee, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that's, a challenge, forging your own way. I also think leaders, one of the challenges they face is kind of having those difficult conversations, right? Really tough conversations. Maybe it's a negative performance review. Maybe it is bad news for a client, something that, if we have that head and heart and that relationship already built with somebody, then they're going to know that even though this is a tough conversation, it's coming from a place of care. And so I think that a lot of people don't necessarily think, oh, everything is rosy as a leader and you just get to, have all the good news. But the truth is you have a lot of the bad news too. And being that coach there's a great book called Crucial Conversations. We actually did the training for it at J. Dunn, and it really helps in how do you frame those conversations in a positive and constructive way. And so I think that's probably one of the challenges that leaders, don't get a lot of credit for.
Nate, what are you thinking?
I think I've got a few thoughts on it. The piece around conversations, a guy named Tom Leonard, who was a quote, a coach, has a quote, all problems exist in the absence of a good conversation. And so for me as a leader and from what I've seen, I've kind of developed and I focus on, and I talk to my team and the people around me about the idea of new truth. And so the new truth is that, hey, last Thursday you told me this was going to happen by Wednesday. And then as soon as you found out on Tuesday, you called me and said, hey, I'm not going to make it by Wednesday. I now understand that the ship that was bringing this stuff in is now held up in the port of Baltimore because a tanker took out the bridge.
Right.
That's the new truth. That's
right.
And so, to what Lee said, you turn around and you have that hard conversation with the client, but you just brought them the truth. And if you can dissociate yourself from, hey, I've got to get this done no matter what, and come back to, hey, this is the new truth. We need to figure out this problem. Here's the impact. So having those conversations, moving past problems, and then understanding our role as leaders in passing on what is the truth. To that truth piece, there's a lot of looking at your own self that needs to occur. That concept of when two people are looking at one person in a mirror, what do they see? And we run around and have this whole experience called life, and we're never actually really seeing things happen. We're always processing them about 0.003 seconds later than they've occurred. And then we're also imagining stuff as it goes on. We've literally got blind spots in our eyes that get filled in by our imagination. We have emotional reactions to a thing in 1/40th of the time that we might have a rational reaction to a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have 40 emotions occur before you have a rational thought.
Right.
And if you don't do that self-work, if you don't climb into yourself and kind of understand, hey, why does this upset you? When Sarah said this thing to you, why did it set you off?
Yeah.
Go back somewhere else in a quiet place, pull out that mirror and have a hard conversation with yourself. Focus on what is the new truth. Tell yourself, the prime client, what it is that you're struggling with. And I think that kind of gets also to the idea of the easy street that is leadership. A lot of people carry this conception that leadership is just giving orders and sitting in a chair and drinking coffee. And if you're doing leadership right, leadership should be the hardest job you ever have, because you're responsible for others. You're responsible for a thing getting done. And that should weigh heavily on anybody who's got that mantle.
I think one of the other overlooked challenges that you really just brought up is the overlooked challenge that leaders face is self-reflection. That if you don't take time to self-reflect, like there are things that we all do that we're like, oh, I got to really work on that. Like, oh my gosh, that's a detriment to me. And if you're not saying those types of conversations, because I'll admit one of mine is I will jump to like, well, why didn't they blah, 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 and so I still say that. But then I start to self-reflect. And like one of the things that I've been learning is give people the benefit of the doubt, and so come at it in different perspective. And so like, I know that that's one of the things that I'm continuing to work on, because I immediately go like, I jump on it. And I love what you said, Nate, about the new truth. I also think that a part of that is the self-reflection of, was there something that I could have seen prior to this time that helped me to know that this was going to happen? Because I do also think that sometimes the new truth is convenient for people. And sometimes if they had really taken a look at like the environment, they would have known this really wasn't possible. I set myself up for failure. So now, new truth can also be a detriment to them. Well, now here's my new truth. Well, yeah, but what did you also not see? Sometimes there's seen things, and sometimes there's things you just chose not to look at as well.
It's funny you picked that, because on my list of expectations that I give to people, the line about the new truth is here, and then directly beneath it is, don't be surprised by the predictable.
Yes.
Right.
If you think you want a proposal, and I'm working on something right now, the expectation is the proposal is going to come in the Monday after Thanksgiving. And we know what Thanksgiving is. We know when it occurs.
So
We
why
know
isn't
what
it just
usually
on
happens.
Wednesday?
So why not push it to Wednesday? And that's, that's a decision. There's operational reasons behind it. There could be other stuff that we don't know, but if you think that you're going to develop if you're going to develop and implement and finish placing some concrete over New Year's in Buffalo, New York, you got to think through that problem. You got to understand what you're getting into. You can't just show up on Thursday and say, well, it was snowy in Buffalo, we can't place concrete. So.
Got to have a backup plan.
Cate, do you have anything on this? You want me to go to the next one? Because I think you'll really like the next one.
Then go for it.
All right.
I have something. I always have something for everything. But
all right. What role does vulnerability and authenticity play in leadership, and how do you balance it with societal and organizational norms?
Ooh.
If you guys don't mind, I'd love Cate to take this one, because Cate's authentic and vulnerable and completely against societal and organizational norms.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say fuck the norms, because you can't truly be authentic if you're worried about the norms. I mean, the norms are there. They are a reality. They can be your truth that you have to face. But at the end of the day, you are who you are. And if you try to put yourself into something that you are not, you won't be happy. You won't be successful. So, sometimes I'll just be honest. Sometimes I wish I wasn't a bald lesbian with a tattooed head, pushing norms, like I'm bulldozing through a fucking China shop, because it is, hard at times, or I would just, sometimes I would like to be like the quiet person in the back, but it's not who I am, and I try to be that person. And I try to fit into norms, and I try to let fear of, what other people would think affect me. And I just, at the end of the day, you have to find those around you that want your vulnerability, that want you to be your authentic self, and know that bringing that to the table is your superpower, right? And it is a part of who you are. And that's okay if it doesn't work, if you can't fit with certain folks because of whatever, that's fine. We're not all meant to be everybody's best friend, but we are meant to be ourselves. So,
and I think as leaders, when we also look beyond sometimes things, like if I could have not hired Cate, because I could have said, oh, I can't hire, someone that has a tattoo, because people would, on the back of their head, because, the people that we do business with just wouldn't accept that. Right. What I have also found is that every time Cate goes into the room, she lights it up. Like all of a sudden people will be like, I will sit there and literally watch them feel uncomfortable at first, with her. And then all of a sudden they become her best friend. And so it's also sometimes looking beyond sometimes things. And I can tell you, for me, this is one of, I know from an HR, I think HR sometimes is the detriment of companies, because they leave out the word human, a part of the experience. It's really not about human relationships. I cuss. I will do certain things that are not HR, that HR is not that they will poo-poo, about. And so but I also look for people that whenever I'm hiring them, like, this is who I am. And, are we going to be a good fit as well? Like, this is who our organization is. And I think a part of this live stream and the things that we've done, people see a different side of our company. It's like, you'll know that you probably aren't going to be a good fit for us if you're like cringing over the fact of how it is what we speak as well. So, Nate and Lee, I would love to hear your perspectives, because neither of you are to the level of where we are. You guys are more, I would say, more conservative in some ways. But maybe you have aspects that are not as conservative in business as well that we haven't seen. So what do you guys think?
So to Cate's comment, the normal is made up.
Yes.
It's a statistician's application of a bell curve to a population.
Yeah.
That's normal. And so if you have 100 people and you pick a trait, there's likely going to be a quote unquote normal curve. But every one of those 100 people fits within that normal curve, every single one of them.
Right.
So normal is made up. And we've kind of talked about this a couple of times, the idea of caring for your people, engaging with your people, of knowing who they are, of relating to them. All of these actions build up what's referred to as idiosyncratic credit. And so the better you are at engaging with people, the better you are at helping them feel like they belong, feel like they know what the mission is, making sure that person one thinks that person two is committed to doing good quality work. The better you do at those things, the more you can get away with having tattoos on both arms. The more you can get away with having piercings. And those are outside the normal, quote unquote, just because not everybody has a cartilage piercing up here. And the first person that has it is going to set some trend. They're going to step forward and show up with a cartilage piercing. And then more and more will show up, and eventually that, what we refer to as a counterculture, will become culture. One of the things that I've loved watching with reference to tattoos is the prevalence of tattoos in society. Right. I love seeing people show up now with hand tattoos. Having been in the military for the time that I was in, we had rules and unspoken codes about where and how you could get a tattoo. Right. And even that is getting reshaped. And as soon as I retired, I went out and got a left sleeve. And it's, wait, the Dirty Sailor didn't have a left sleeve, but what'd you call me, conservative? Yeah, no. Has one. So it's the norm is made up, and we have to invest in the relationship with the people around us. We have to ensure that we're helping them be the best that they can be. And then we get to have those idiosyncrasies where, we tell terrible dad jokes. And then you get to a point where the jokes that you tell get more groans than laughs, and you like the groan more than you like the laugh. That's an idiosyncrasy that you have to build to, because if that's all you did was tell terrible dad jokes, people would get tired of it. But if you are taking care of people, if you're engaging people, if you're making sure that they know what their job is, then you can pepper those in. All of a sudden you become more human to them.
Right.
So Nate, just so you know, most people think I have tattoos, but I have 0. Yeah. So Lee, do you have any tattoos? And then what do you
well, I do actually. I have one. I know, and I'm the conservative one on the call, right?
I love it.
But it's interesting that we talk about this, and I think it's evolved over time. And you know, I know Sarah knows my background, but I used to run a modeling agency and I used to be in the entertainment industry. And so I had short, spiky, fun hair and, you know, probably was a little bit different than now. And going into the AEC industry, which I do think tends to be a little more on the conservative side and all. And I probably the color of my hair is not conservative, but the style is a little bit more conservative and making some of those adjustments. And I think, you know, it has transitioned over the time I've been in the industry. I think we're a lot more open to tattoos and all of the funness that we can bring. And I think that's why, you know, when we talk about they've added, you know, everybody's DE&I, but they've added the word belonging. And I think that is a real key to, you know, that piece of us that is unique. And, you know, yes, every company has a culture and every company, you know, probably will tend to be on, you know, one majority or another, but the fact that we can intermingle and appreciate each other's differences and appreciate the, you know, fun and uniqueness, that adds to what we are collectively. And that's what makes us so great, you know, as either a company, a society, all of the above. So you made me say, yes, I have a tattoo.
I love it. I love it.
That's awesome.
All right, I'm going to pull up. We got several comments. So Maya said a consideration is also that some people like me often put trust in
Oh,
leaders.
you read this one
Did
already.
I already do this one? I started to read. I was like, did I already do this one? All right, Eric. And so Eric said self-awareness and caring make you a better leader than you may sometimes feel. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think, you know, caring was one of those traits that I said at the beginning was that distinguished a leader. So I think absolutely.
One of my most rewarding leader moments was 9 months after the fact. Someone was leaving the Navy and they came up to me and they said, hey, you know, you did this and this and this in this situation. And I really appreciated what you did. And like, I got chills and teared up.
I had chills just hearing that.
Because I didn't realize what that kindness had done. I didn't realize what that caring had done. And to have someone witness it and tell you about it, not in the moment, not for gain, that this kid was in the process of being kicked out of the Navy. You know, and that's what he said to me was, hey, you did this and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
That's awesome.
And that was wild.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to go through some comments and then I want to do the final question. And so perhaps the best leaders are those that help people build the self-awareness to lead themselves. Ooh,
Yes.
that's reflective.
Yeah.
And then she also said, always boils down to the quality communication thing. So she was referring back to some of the conversations we were having. And then fun energy fact, it is said that the vibration of authenticity, being your true and genuine self, is even more powerful than the vibration of love. That's what I've actually heard as well, Maya. And I love that. And when you really think about it, like when you see people in their true authentic self, like there's just like this feeling or this vibration that really comes off of them. All right. And then we have Divine who has joined us. She said, hello, lovelies, my badasses. And she said, character commitment helps. She also says, I love it too. People expressing themselves authentically. Investments require loyal, consistent efforts for sure. And Sarah is tatted up in her heart. Well, you know, that's why I add the color, you know, to add, you know, some dynamics to it. So I think that's why people think I have tats is because I color my hair. They, you know, it's that assumption thing, you know, they have this, so they must have this.
Stereotypes.
Or I see them, you know, in this way. And so therefore they must be conservative, right? All right. Final question. And so thinking about all the things we've talked about related to leadership, if you were going to give advice for some upcoming leaders, what advice do you have for them? Who would like to start this one off?
I'll start, and I don't know that I have specific advice. I think we've talked about a lot of things, and so I'm very big on books, and so I just thought I'd share a few books that I think really, first, The Ideal Team Player. If you have not read that, by Patrick Lencioni, it's great, talking a lot about different characteristics of an ideal team player. Another one that I love is called The Go Giver. And then they have the Go Giver Leadership as well. But it's a quick, easy read, but it's just a really good kind of philosophy to think by. And then I could not end without talking about Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That is my life book, and it really defines 17 principles of success that he garnered by interviewing all of the leaders of the industrial age: Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, and culling out what were the commonalities between these leaders. And so if you haven't read Think and Grow Rich, read it.
I'm going to need you to go back into LinkedIn and add these into the comments, I think. Because I already want to, the organized tomorrow for today, I'm interested in. And then, so if you don't mind.
I will do that.
I love it. Nate, what do you think? Advice for upcoming leaders?
The first I hit on already: all problems exist in the absence of a good conversation. Be ready to talk to people about problems, about good things. Aim to have many more positive interactions with people than neutral or negative. Walking past someone in a hallway is a neutral interaction, and because of the way humans are who we are, that neutral interaction, if we don't look at them, if we just walk past them, it's just become a negative event. And so are you walking around being 6 times as positive as you are negative? That's a lot. And it's not all sunshine and rainbows, for sure, but there's ways to emphasize stuff to correct behavior. There's ways to be positive in how you correct behavior. There's ways to be positive in how you correct performance.
Even just a smile.
Yeah. Some of the scariest scoldings I've ever got were issued in a whisper. But the other thing is culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's from Peter Drucker. And I bring that up because back to that normal curve, you have your go-getters, your top 10% of your organization, and then you got the bottom 10% of your organization that you struggle with day in, day out. If you pay too much attention to that bottom 10%, you're losing 90% of the organization. If you pay too much attention to that top 10%, you're losing 90% of the organization. But if you can go find the middle of the organization, the belly button of the organization, if you can go find the guy in the quarry who's breaking big rocks in the small rocks, and he's dirty and dusty, but he recognizes that he's building a cathedral, he's not going to be your top performer. He's not going to be your bottom performer. He shows up, he does his job, he goes home. If you can find those people and emphasize, again, that you're having conversations with everybody all at once, all 100 employees, but if you can pay attention to the middle and bring them along, you'll get the top and the bottom. They'll come along as well.
Love it.
Yeah. You said like a million things there, Nate, that were all super helpful. It's hard to follow Nate and Lee on this topic, I will say. So I think what I would tell a young leader after they've read all the great books and done everything that Nate said, then they need to listen. They know, right? Everyone knows. If you're honest with yourself, you know what you need to do. And if you lead with love, you really can't go wrong, right? I'm not saying, to be inappropriate, but I'm saying to lead with love and kindness, and to, be real with yourself at all times, because your inner self, even your divine self kind of knows what you need and where you should go and where your path will lead you. And you have to listen. So on top of all of the amazing things, I just wanted to mention that because I think it's a little outside the box. But
Yeah, I love that. All right, I'll end with this. So what I love is that you all gave different perspectives. And that to me is one of the biggest things that I recommend is gaining different perspectives. That is also where you'll find your authenticity. Like you'll pull from these different people the things that really resonate with you. And one of the things that I think people overlook is understanding their brand, understanding who they are. And this is actually one of the things I'm doing with one of my leaders. And also I'm mentoring another person and I'm doing that with them. And we're focusing on understanding what differentiates you, what makes you you, and then what are you not good at? That to me, from a leader perspective, be who you are. And I'll give you an example of this. And so, sorry, I have something weird happening up here. For me, I am good off the cuff. I have learned to be good off the cuff, but I have found that other leaders aren't. And I said, and I had someone I'm mentoring, I said, that's okay. Be you. Like come back to the other leader and say, I need some time to think about this. And go back and then demonstrate why it's beneficial for them to allow you the time to think about it, because you'll come back with more details than they will, because they may be good off the cuff and coming up with quick answers. What you're good at is going back and finding the details. So the differentiation there is sometimes you need someone that can immediately make decisions. Sometimes you need people that are detail oriented, that will look through the cracks of other things. So that's understanding who you are in all of those different types of things. So understanding your brand, what differentiates you, and finding people that complement you. The other part of that is defining your values, understanding what you stand for and what you also don't stand for, and don't be in an organization that is against your values.
yeah.
So if there is something that is like, this is not me, don't be there. Go be somewhere else. There is someplace else, another culture that will fit you, that is out there.
Right.
The last thing I will say is not only the listen part that Cate said, but also be willing to have the difficult conversations. Learn how to have a conversation with someone and be direct with them. Be kind to them, but also be able to say the things that need to be said to help them grow and to understand that this is what's expected from the position. Is this your expectation as well? Come to that agreement. And if that's not something that they can do, then say we need to figure out a different solution.
Right.
That is, from a leader perspective, that's something that I see that people fall down on, is having the difficult conversation and being able to be kind, but also being able to be direct.
Tough love.
Yeah. Tough love. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be, tough. The other last thing that I'll add is when you need to say no, learning how to say yes to something else by saying no. So sometimes you may be able to do something, but you can agree to something else. So it seems as if you're saying still yes, if that makes sense.
I would encourage caution on that, because one of the things you may run into is a yes but situation.
Yes, but.
Yes, but. Yeah.
And yes but means no. That's yes but means no. And so I like the idea of, hey, what's the better way to emphasize this and go in that direction? I like that.
Yes.
got to make sure we don't put that but at the end of it.
Agreed. But also being able to be willing to say no. Like I can say yes to this. I can't say yes to this. So understanding where that delineation is between the yes and the no is probably maybe the better way to say it.
That prioritization again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. I want to be respectful of time. And so you guys have been amazing. And I think we could just talk about this for hours. This is for me, a really important topic because I want to see more authentic, vulnerable leaders out there, people that are willing to delegate and empower people and allow them to make mistakes and learning from other people. I learned from Cate, she's a great listener and sometimes, but I'm a good talker. And so, I also will take time to really listen to things that she observes. So it's really finding individuals that help you to do things that you're not as good at. And so,
yeah, totally. That's so needed. Sarah's good at telling me like, you just bit off way more than you can chew. Stop. Okay, fine.
So Maya said, yes, Cate, lead with love and kindness. And this is for Nate. Laugh out loud. Maybe that's a Navy thing. My dad was not a yeller. We laughed that we knew when he was mad because his ears became red. Alyssa gave us some big purple hearts. And Divine said, I love outside the box. We are unique in how we love and learn. Wisdom applied is important. And she said, your brand is your unique genius. Heck yes and heck no. Laugh out loud. Indecisive energy for me. And then bring out your badass self is always bringing out such amazing contributors. Loved this so much. And then lastly, I appreciated this show. Thank you, loves and speakers. Oh, one more. Thank you all. And so thank you guys again so much. And thank you guys for the interaction. We have amazing audience. And so thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. So Cate, I don't even know what we're doing next week. And so
are we off? I think we're off because it's Black Friday.
Oh, is it Thanksgiving? We're taking off next week because it's Thanksgiving. Last year we tried to do a Thanksgiving show and it wasn't.
I think we enjoyed it. Poor Jay.
Yes, we had people join us, but this year we're going to be taking off for Thanksgiving and then we'll be back in December and I'll have to remember and see what it is that we're going to be doing there. So we will get that advertised for everyone. And so again, thank you both for joining us. It was an amazing conversation. Cate, I'm glad you were able to get up on the internet to get back.
Oh, it's too funny. Yeah. I was troubleshooting my microphone because I've had such trouble with my microphone. And I didn't even notice that, I wasn't online because I was working with hardware, right? So I was like, that's weird. My phone's not downloading Sarah's picture. Weird. Like, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm not on the internet. So I have fiber and it never goes out, so it was just so weird. So something power happened, I believe.
Yep. And then I love this also, since we won't see you next week, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Yes. I would also just love people to add in the comments things that you're grateful for. I love doing that during Thanksgiving. So we would also just love to hear maybe what you're thankful for in your life, or maybe even anything like a show or something you heard today or even previously that you heard that you're thankful for. And I'm thankful for all of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we will see you again in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you all.